Yeah, this whole Tishrei is such a mess. Once I had a picture with all the 7 different things that's Chodesh Tishrei. Let's see if I could find it. I don't know. There was once such a like once, I don't remember. Okay, ich sehe es nicht. Du weißt, wie es gewesen.
Say 7 different things.
No, we have to sort of look at least forget about sikkos, also sikkos, also sikkos. There's all only one Indian, because when you you go otherwise we get stuck in this what's the difference in the first day and the second day and the third day? There's no difference. It's all turns and draait zich dezelfde zaak. And there's so many different at least different words. Like you talk about din, then if you talk about din, then you could say, for example, this was one of the things I did. You could say there's din Rosh Hashanah, Ksiva, or Tzadikim Gemirim, din Aseres Met Shiva, din Chsima, Im Kippur, Shan Rabbah, whatever that is, but it has something to do with the din alamayim of Sikkos, which of course in the other Mekabulim has something to do with the Chosam and the Tzel and all these things. So that's din, and then you could talk about Malchus in different ways. You could talk about Zechronis in different ways. Talk about Shavris in different ways. Talk about Shiva in different ways. I can't find, where did I have that picture? It was a nice picture. Okay, Kitzur Amasa is, so in my version of the world, there's I had a picture. No, it said. I remember, if I remember how I called it, I would be able to find it, but I don't remember, so it was nicht. It's probably in the Me'adim thing. Was ich gewollt sagen. So, koiden kol, I learned a bisschen the Parsha, was Vayayelech. Koiden kol, I learned a bisschen Teure. And the Teure, I don't see it here. Okay.
This thing that doesn't say din in the Torah.
Oh, so let's try to see what it's saying. Okay, here, this is my picture that I was talking about. One year I had in a different place, I had a bulletin board, and I was able to make a list of different Nikidas that I could find. So here I got the 8, and there's a 9th one said Oman or something, I think. But the Kitzur, these are at least 8 different ways which we could sort of organize a thing. We have to talk about the beginning of the year, about the business and the all of these different things. Or it goes together with the of the tzaddik, or the whatever that is, the of Chvais being saved by the tzaddik. Or yeah, that's only one of his. Okay, I'm just saying. And we before all of this, so we could open a Tikkel Chumash. Now, the Chumash, I'll tell you what it says in the Chumash, what I think right now. In the Chumash, we don't have din, and we barely have Tshuva. You have to remember this. So the Chumash has something called Mi'adim. This is one of the most original things of the Torah. In other words, right when you have the bris, the erste bris of Parshas Mishpatim, we already have Shalosh Regolim Tochagli, both in Mishpatim and in Kesisa, and probably in the Seres Dibris also, at least Shabbos, which is some kind of Moed. So it's like literally one of the up there as one of the basic things of having a religion, or at least this religion is that it has Mi'adim and this maybe Chedishim, how to do the Mi'adim or when to do them, and however you want to read it. It says Shabbos, not Seres Dibris. Shabbos. And the Harchova of Seres Dibris is Parshas Mishpatim in a certain sense. So the Torah originally has Me'adim, one of the important things with the Torah, or at least one of the. There's like 4 things in Parshas Mishpatim. There's Chabenon L'Chavayre, there's Karbonas, not really, but, and there's Me'adim, and there's Menadel L'Mokim, whatever you want to call that. Me'adim is probably one of the big Menadel L'Mokim things. Maybe if it's not, there's such a thing as Me'adim, and Me'adim, according to the Chumash, and I don't know. I don't have a pshat about this. Like I said, there's Bnei L'Mokim, which is sort of Hanech Hashem Nekech Isra V'Dezora, and all kind of staffs of that. And there's Bnei L'Chavayre, which is Eved Ivri, and Chvayz U'Shtatem Elchs Mishpatim. And then there is what's the third thing? I told him, Adam, there's no kabbanas, and Shemas there's not really any kabbanas. There's a little bit. There's like one word about kabbanas. Yeah, there's not really kabbanas in Shemas. Beside that, that's so andere Shmis. As I hear me wie gesagt, letzte Visia it's true for Sefer Shemas. It's true more or less. Kabbanim. So there's me'adim. Now these me'adim, what are me'adim? There's the censorship of the Messiah already. Me'adim are seeing God, right? It says, Lirois, Yere kol zechechas pnei Adon Hashem. Then the Bale Messiah, they changed it to write Yeroa kol zechecha. This is conspiracy theory, but it's more or less in the Gemara. Here you have the parshas of the Rebbegolim over here. In all the parshas, in probably here also, in all of the parshas of Me'adim, it says, what are Me'adim for? Lirois pnei Adon. And of course, the Nekidus, which the Messiah was Magia that to say Lirois pnei Adon, that God should see you instead of you seeing God. And the Gemara read the Mishnah, the Gemara in Halacha the Gedrusha Chagiga has this Kishem Shebaliris Kach Balirois. You have to have two eyes, very weird Drusha, nobody understands it. But the pshat is like this. Originally it said Yere kol zechecha. I looked at the Emma's story. I don't know who told it to me, but as I looked up. Originally it said Yere kol zechecha. Then the Chumim, as they are wont to do, like the Targum already does this. This thing of Shoy Mekvod, that God is mifshet and everything is a very old thing, although the anti-Rambam people try to convince you that it's not, but it's at least as old as the Nekidus and the Chemish and as old as the Targum. Like the Rambam noticed, and the Ramban's kashas are not true, and the Rambam is right. It says shlish pa mir kol zechecha yere kol zechecha. Over here it says el pnai shlein. Bekitze yere kol zechecha es pnai. It says in Mishpatim it says el pnai, and in Kisisa it says es pnai. So it's another dik, the same kind of nekeda. So these are the two main places where it says aliyah l'regel, right? It's also in Ra'ai. When Ra'ai is already in the ayah it says also Yere kol zechecha es pnei Hashem lekach. I'll do that 3 times where it says mitzvah aliyah l'regel, and that's what me'adim are. Let's go back to that thing. So me'adim are to come to see God who lives in Parshas Ra'ai it says Amokim Asher Yivchar, and Parshas Mishpatim Mekasisa it doesn't say where, right? In the Mishkan, if that meant is not the Mishkan or whatever exactly it means, but Mekim Zein God, yeah. Now of course what Zein God means is our question that we learn about from Mirash Shana Achris Shana. And as we see, the Chacham were not comfortable with literally, at least being mefarish, that we see God. Although we do see God, like Moitzi the Krivim and stuff like that, there's something called seeing God. What does it mean? Or Ere? In some sense, the Kvyochtish, Kovadish, Shaychen, Mikdash, and being oil means coming to see him. Like, good morning, I'm visiting. No, this meint no berachnis, am trecht wegen dem, was der Rambam gesagt hat. It means seeing the Mishkan is Ge'eliru as Hashem, as the Kizri basically says. One of these things it means, or it means totally literally, like you'll be Megashim, however you want to say it. Okay? The Chumim, they sort of turned this over. And they said, Yeruah kol zechecha, God sees you. Now, of course, that's also Megishim in the sense that they triberu, right? But what the L'chora means is something.
Presenting yourself, sort of.
Not right, but basically this means, now, what it means physically is going to this mukim and being seen, yeah? Bring this karbunas, this riyah, chagiga, and whatever the avoid exactly of being seen is, but there's this avoid, yeah? But now you come very close to Din and Shiva, if you notice. And this is the Mishnah in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, which said, right, this is the Mishnah in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, which said, which are, 3 of them are Shalosh Regolim, we'll get to the 4th in a second. 3 of them are these Yorah. So where did they get this from? Shatan Pusik, Yerah Kol Zechecha. What does Yerah Kol Zechecha mean? Now, for Chazal, now this goes back to I saw, this is, I told you this chat. This goes back to my old Torah about people seeing God in different ways, right? The Pesach Shvi Sikas thing, Mitzad Etzim, or Mitzad Torah, or Mitzad Schar V'Einish. In Chazal, in general, God is the judge. God is the one that gives Schar V'Einish. This is how they read Hashkocha. I don't remember what my eyes were for this, but that's in general how they see V'Yed, V'Yidayim, V'Ba'al Din, V'Yusad Lidon. That's the Chachamim's, for the most part, that's their vision of God. like we have Hamelech HaKadosh, Hamelech HaMishpat, right? Shemara Malchisa, how does he Mara Malchisa? Lefnei Hashem Kivo, how? I tell him also, I was like, this Lishpat Esoretz, right? So B'zeh Sheishoy for the Esoretz, that's what it means, Mara Malchisa, that's what it means, Mara Es Atzma, which is Malchisa. Of course, we already passed saying Atzma, but Malchisa, that's what it means, he's Shoyf, they get Schar V'Einish. So therefore, being Oile Regel basically means God judging you. This is Pujit. Now, how did we get it to connect to these three things? It's also Pujit because that's literally what it says in Parshas Vayim Shemaya. And Vayim Shemaya, a little before that, says, Et Yisrael. Now, we're going to talk about this Yisrael soon. Et Yisrael is not like Mitzrayim where you get whatever you want, but it's Eretz Asher, Ein Hashem Lekecha Ba Meirash Shana Ve'ad Achres Shana. V'Hayim Shemaya, like two psikim later, I'm skipping. Shemaya Tishmi. In other words, God, in Et Yisrael, the seasons, the vaccine and the grain and everything, the whatever it says in Vayim Shemaya, doesn't happen by itself like in Mitzrayim from the Niles or whatever, however you understand that. But there's Ashgacha Pratis. Ashgacha Pratis means Meresh Shana Vad Achres Shana. Obviously, this has to be by the yearly cycle, just like the crop has a yearly cycle. Shana literally in Chumash doesn't mean a year; it means a crop season. Like, yeah, Aser to Aser is called Tvias Racha Yetz Aser de Shana Shaychas Shana. Of course, there's a medrash, but Abishat means every Shana, and like Gemis Bashnet Tvias Mechalach. A lot of psikim that show you that Shana literally means a Chiddush Ha Tvia, a cycle of crops. It doesn't mean a year. It means a year, but that's what a year meant then. When, at least in that area where there's basically once a year things grow. In other places things grow different. But then, that was the minig then, or the Metzias then over there. So therefore, very simply, how we get from Me'adam being Zman Liras Pnei Hashem to Zman Liras Pnei Hashem, which is another way of saying Zman Adin. And of course, there's Zman Adin for what? Like the Mishnah says, like Pesach Alat Tviyah. This is not B'derech Remes, because that's when the Tviyah comes. So it's Alat Tviyah. Parasil and grow a little later. So it's Parasil and Sikkis is Al Hamayim. Just really, it's a cycle. It's really sick. Now you understand also B'Pashtus why Rosh Hashanah is the main one, or why Sikkis is the main one. And you see why Rosh Hashanah, right? Because if you think about it, it's very nice, and that's why some Tanum were chilik with this. They said Hakel Nadonim B'Rosh Hashanah v'Gzad Din Nechtam and v'Chadayim. Why? Because really, there's only one din. Of course, there's things can happen to the Tviyah Paisach, things can happen to the Paisach and Shviyas and so on. But the Ikka din, like it says in Vayim Shemaya, is the rain. Rain is the Ikka way of saying the Ikka tziyah. Now, of course, we have to be after this because we're not living in the rain, and at least so much. But the Ikka tziyah and the Chimish of God, seeing God as being the one that makes Chava Einish, which is the whole story of the Torah, basically, and at least in this aspect of Chava Einish, is that it gives the rain when it's not the Geshmech and Betam, and if not, right? Now rain is decided, when does it have to rain? In the winter. Now when does it God decide this? It's before that, right? Now you have this kasha, God should decide every day, yeah, but some things, if you think about it like this, it's not a real kasha, because these things, at least, they happen once a year. You say, and God there could be that the God today will be mad, but it doesn't really make sense. You understand what I'm saying? You're talking about the Metzias, not about God could change and be yesh ma'ayin, but should the crop of this year work? That's a once a year thing. Should it rain this year? It's not should it rain today, but it's chagunish from regen hand. That's what's going to regen in the season that my things should grow. So it's a yearly thing. By definition, it's a yearly thing. And for people that ask this question, God can change. Yeah, He could. Yeah, but that's what it is. My son, you're asking that this thing. And the Chanami, doesn't the chilik should rain today or tomorrow? There might be prutis the chilik. Maybe that's takadim pruti. But basically, that's the only din that makes sense, right? That's why I don't understand. People have started worried that how could it be din klali? How could it be a din on the nation? There's some things that by definition are going to be for a group or for a tkifa, not only for one day and for one person. So that's right. So. Now, you go to God, and what do you do on Yom Tov? That's actually what we do on Sikkos, at least on Pesach. By the mitzvahs, according to the Medrash, you mispal, you meet him and you say, please make sure that this year's, or he decides, it's more mitzad chov in the sense of the Rebbe Akiva, of the Pnei Torah. It's more mitzad that, of course, mitzad because he has this klal of Chava Einish, that if you're do mitzvahs, then. Yeah, but it was a bepal mamash. You make oime bepesach. It's a kiliyah tefillah or kiliyah asgilas hamitzvah, like we discussed in a different year. That the tefillah should work. So that's when you do it. Like we say, b'mdavna you meet God. What does it mean? That's when you do the avodas, and He's in the mikdash. You have to go to the mikdash. So in the idea, it's also that seeing God means you could say the akudah or the idea or the ifah of the hashgacha. So now, of course, do we understand why Sikkos is really the main Yom Tov, right? And how do I know that Sikkos is really the main Yom Tov? Of course, in the Chilush HaChumim, we know that Chag is Chag is Sikkos, Tam Chag, but of course, it's finished Pusik. And the only Yom Tov that has 7 days, a Lila Regel, is Sikkos. It's nicht mamish, so maybe only one, the first and the last day, but Lamas, she hasn't finished the Pusik, right? One day you should come for Pesach, but it says this as openly as you could, right? And Pais and Shvis, of course, is only one day, and Shekaz it Kes, Shivas Yomim. Smachlif Neshem like Shivas Yomim, you should come for 7 days. So that's the biggest Yom Tov. All the other Yom Tov have only one day of a little regel. Yeah, it says Chogeli is Chag Hashem, Chogeli Shvit Chogeli. It's many times very meferish, and also on Parshas Vayelech, of course, that's where I wanted to get to. Okay, so but that's why. So the din al amayim is the ikar din of the year, is the din al amayim, of course. And when is the al amayim? Fadem. So Tzikr is the ikar din, because of course lamas everything is tuli and mayim. That's the main thing. And now Rosh Hashanah. Now we have to sort of see Rosh Hashanah pipshat as nisbach to this. How do I know this? Because of course Shlosh Shagim don't include Rosh Hashanah. And where are they included? So l'chayr al pipshat pshitus hamikra works like this. In Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur only twice, right? In Vayikra and Bamidbar, Parshas Emer and Parshas Pinchas, and we can assume that those two are the same. Vayikra, everyone knows that Bamidbar is really half of Bamidbar, at least is really just Hashlam Astaris Kanim, like the Ramban says. So it's the same thing. And l'chayr, what was in Chadash in Sefer Bamidbar, in Sefer Vayikra, this is a machshuv as a Chabetz. The Ran also says something like this in a different way. Is Yom Kippur, right? When Parshas Achrama is, maybe if it was Neschadish al Yidai B'nai Aaron, or exactly how the Chiddush of that Parsha works in the beginning of Achrama, was Neschadish as such a thing of what the Bible scholars call Taharas HaMikdash Lefnei HaChag, right? Mechiper Aaron al. What are we mostly mechaper on Yom Kippur? If you look in the Psikim of Achrama, you see it says you're mechaper al HaMizbeach. Of course, that includes also the people, but it's not beferish. Yichaper aleichem. But it's v'chiper ala kodesh. V'chiper ala kodesh. V'tima is b'nai Yisrael. So ke'eli, the ke'eli that's it. But lama kol yichaper. You mechaper the mizbeach, yeah, but you're cleaning the mizbeach. Kivyochel, that's in Yecheskel, you have this in Chodesh Nisan also. Very similar idea, right? Kivyochel, the mizbeach, which is hashoich nitam, v'soichtem oisam, a ganz yuzindik, man. Whatever, how is the Timus Kikdash Kedusha with how Chazal conceptualized it, but really all Timus, all Chatum are somehow Matama the Mikdash, because God is with you and obviously he doesn't like when you sin. And now once the guy's Kimen, now why pink that? And then in Lamas in Achrama it's sort of presented like there's this is how you do it. If you want to go to this is how you mataris a kodesh, and grad you should do it Achas Bashuna again. This is again where you see there's Achas Bashuna once a year in Yom Kippur. That's when you should in 10th day of the 7th month. That's when you do it, right? And if I was talking the 10th day of the 7th month. So there's really two ways of reading this, and they're both connected to the same thing. You could say because it's the beginning of the year. Or the end of the year, the beginning of the year, however you want to read it exactly. But the cycle of the year resets then, so it makes sense to be the Tara then. And another way to say it is that it's to the biggest Mikdash event of the year, which is Chag HaSikkos. Of course, when do you clean? The groß Zach, and the cleaning at the not kashmir, but has this kapura of ala mikdash v'chibra ala kodesh, and has this therefore by that, of course, how the connection of us to God somehow goes through the mikdash. So that's where the chatum klager up and you open it, and that's how you get back to God. That's basically how the Yom Kippur works, and you send avayas with the aluzal, however exactly the tzir of it, and so therefore Yom Kippur is achuna lechag HaSikkos. It's taharas hamikdash lefnei Chag HaSikkos. Okay, and that's in Parshas Achrama. And then you come to Parshas Emor, then you suddenly have also on the first day something called Yom Teriu, which nobody knows what it means, and Achba also we have the Yom Kippur. So it seems to me like Chazal were right. Yeah, it's a Zichron Teriu, right? Zichron Teriu. Sorry, first one is Zichron Teriu. Right, there's a whole Torah. I already saw that the first year it was Shabbos. That's why. That's I forgot who said this pshat. Mekitzer, so I will sagen. So if you read in this order, if I'm right, I don't know if the order is right, but there's a way of understanding the idea like this, which is that like Chazal were right that Rosh Hashanah is really the beginning of Aseret Tshuva, and Yom Teriu is another way of saying, which like sort of like one way of understanding the pasuk in Tehillim is Tikei b'chodesh shofar b'kesel yom chagani, In other words, we blow shofar b'tar achona, liyom chagayni, which of course is Sikkus. Agam there is Gemara lechore dashens that Chag is Rosh Hashanah, but you see over there, even in that Rosh, you see that really they're thinking about Sikkus. And the thing that Sikkus has a achona, the Chag Shlach Chodesh Shvi starts already from the Chodesh. That's really what it seems to say in that Gemara. So, and like the Rambam, maybe like the Rambam would say it's achona l'tshuva or Zichron Trio, start of beginning of this when Iskartem Lifnei Hashem, which is really what Yom Tovim are about, like it says in Parshas Balais. So, of course, this thing starts from Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah, so really, it works backwards. The Shtalshlis, Kili Seder, Shtalshlis, Chodesh Shvis, Mitzat Sheyesh Sikkus, Tzurich Yom Kippur, Mitzat Sheyesh Yom Kippur, Tzurich Rosh Hashanah. And how you understand that. So now there's different ways of understanding it, and the way that Chachamim understood it has to do, and the Mishnah said a big Chiddush, and Rosh Hashanah, a very big Chiddush, which said, the Rosh Hashanah Kol B'Yoy Olam Avim Lefanaf K'naimeran. And really what the Mishnah is saying is a very big Chiddush, and it's a Chiddush of the Chiddush and the Torah of Parshas Tetzuvim, which we always read before Rosh Hashanah, so very much makes sense, but it's mamish pshat, that, again, al pi pshat Torah, there's nowhere in the Torah then Tshuva Onish Pruti to individual people. It's only crops, and crops, again, by definition, are going to be for the whole klal, everyone that lives in Eretz Yisrael, right? Where do we have Tshuva Onish Pruti? Only one pasuk.
It's only crops? How could the Torah it's only crops?
Alles, Melchom, everything is, the Ramban says this, the Torah only has din ala klal. There's no din ala prat, kol ha-Torah. There's onshem ala prat, of course. If you do navayra, the Bezdin will give you einish or kuris, or he says Bezdin, malchus, whatever, but there's not this, when the Torah says God will give you, din shamayim is only ala klal. And ala klal, but if klali is there's more. When the ganze Torah, Vesati Sholem Boretz, the normal one is the crops. There's the Yotzim klal, like Mechomes and stuff like that, or like it says in Zechron, so Medina's by Yom, by the way, in Zechron it also barely says anything about the klal. There's a big Nasana Toike for the Medinas, Eisel Acheref, Eisel Azev, Eisel Azev, was mit ala Yuchad, Eisel Miyach, Yom Yom, steht nicht. It doesn't say about the prat. It says, if there's like one line which the Mefarshim tried to say, it means that. It says, if is by Yipakaiti, Laskiram Lachaim V'lamuv, Mila Nifkat, maybe that means the individuals. Auch nicht mich. That's what the Mefarshim say on the Magze. The Shoinem, not only the hunting Mefarshim. So, we'll sagen, there's one place in the Torah, if it's true what I'm saying, but there's one place in the Torah where the Torah explicitly talks about the prat, which is the Parshas Tetzuvim. Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Volsteg of mine, Shalom Yeli." Why? Basically, he's saying it doesn't matter what I do, because the Olam is doing. It was the Torah of Dila Hashem Dero. So there's a Hayachatim to being Moitzi Yuman Aklal, and then the Cholul Sabrit is like incorporation clause, right? It's incorporating Cholul Sabrit that were and Kesove and the Klal, saying that everything can happen to one person also, or at least to one Shayfet. I think Al Pipshat is talking about the Seres HaShvutim, because that's what the Umar HaGdoira Achran, Miza HaGdoira Achran, which says, V'yashlich mal Eretz Acheretz Kiyem Hazeh. Obviously, the Dora Achran is the two Shvutim that were left in Eretz Yisrael, and they're talking about the Seres HaShvutim. So, L'chayre, even this is not really about a Klal. It's about a Mishpucha, a Shayfet. It's not about one person. And I'm pretty sure that that's what the Torah means when it says, Dora Achran, V'yashlich mal Eretz Acheretz Ve'ekim du. I'm pretty sure that's what it means. I'm sure someone says but Akbon you see some sort of way of having a din ala prat. And the Chumim found a pusik and tell them they had to go. If you feed the Mishnah Rosh Hashanah, the only one of them has a pusik, right? And the Teretz is very chizog. According to my pshat, I've been saying this for the past few years. If you frag it up, you're welcome. But the Boprak Mal doesn't need a raya. It's for him Shemoyan. There's a pusik in Parshas Ekev. Which one needs a pusik? The Rosh Hashanah needs a pusik, because where does it say in the Kol HaTorah Kela that but each person has a pekida or a din? So that has a pusik Kol HaTorah Kela. And Sefer Tehillim they found that a pusik, and l'chayra nobody says this, but l'chayra this mizmah Tehillim is a mizmah sheneim al Rosh Hashanah, Ranin Tzadikim. Everyone talks about Tzadikim, and it says then the Eibishter is Matzel, Amma, Mashgiach. The word Mashgiach doesn't mean Hashgocha, it means sees, right? It means looks. Yes, someone told me that it means something else, but it means looks. Hishkef, Hashgiach. No, they're showing they made it. It's based on the Chachama, but also not that. But yeah, but there's one more place where it says Hashgiach, Mashgiach Menachalonis. Okay, I can put him. Right, so here, but it does mean that the Inyan of Hashgacha is there. From the word Ma'ile, but the Inyan of Hashgacha Prut is there. At least the Mishnah found the word, the Pesach Yotze Yachad Libam, and Rebbe Kol Masayim as referring to a particular person, and the Mishnah read Yachad not together but separate. That's what Yachad generally means in Tanach. Yachad generally doesn't mean together, it means each one of you. Yachad means each one. How we use the word yachad. And Lamasa, the whole kapitel Lamasa, it's interesting if this whole if L'choyre that the whole mizmer is about Rishon, it's very hard to stam one pusik. And L'choyre it talks about B'riyas Ha'olam, right? Koim Kol says Tativ Nagim B'Siriya, which is of course the Rosh Hashanah, right? It talks about B'riyas Ha'olam, Kedusha Devar Hashem, with Var Hashem Nasi, and it was all made with Tzedakah v'Mishpat, so that has to do with why the B'riyas Ha'olam and Tzedakah v'Mishpat, because the world was created with Tzedakah v'Mishpat, whatever exactly that means. And then it talks about this goy is Ashrei HaGoy, which basically the way that a lot of Amor Chazal and L'choyre this pusik already conceptualize that Rosh Hashanah is that theoretically, not theoretically, Beitzim Rosh Hashanah is for each person, but B'nei B'nei Adam. And there's a Kichog L'Yisrael means Dike B'Chodesh Shef, the Kichog L'Yisrael, the Eibishter gave him for the Yid, and God loved so much, he gave us way out of the Mishpat, basically. And the Klal Yisrael, the Chiddush of Klal Yisrael is that we don't have to worry so much about this Dimpruti al Kol Echad, because God loves us, we will shofar, and it says, Ein Hashem li raiv lahatzim levas nafsham, kili afalpi, that's basically Yom Kippur, and the Slicha of Yom Kippur, and Deb Abnella has very nice arichas about the Parshas Emma, where he talks about the din Rosh Hashanah Beit Mis for the Goyim. Yom Kippur is definitely not for Goyim. If I was nicht, just like the Vart, that kili, there's a din. Okay, that's the story, and that's why Rosh Hashanah, but it's still nispach to Sikkos. Sikkos is the din of the Alamayim, which also is for the Goyim also, like it says in Pesach in Zechariah. And the din Sikkos is for the Goyim, right? Mishpach Mitzrayim le'tova, and Tafke Mitzrayim, because Mitzrayim is the one that Parshas Ekev said Mitzrayim doesn't care about the din Alamayim. Kamashplan, they do care. Yeah?
They're going to care.
And they're gonna, at some point it's Anash Gucha, that's what Ha'esh Shalom Melech HaChaloritz means. In Mitzrayim, they don't need Anash Gucha because they have Hanilis. Kamashplan, it's Zan in Mitzrayim Ochata. They also need Sikkos. Yeah, then if they don't come, that's Ansuris, Psede, but Bezach. Okay, I get and then it's Kavayis B'chlibani, that's for Sikkos. Okay, that's my pshat. Right, but Akapunim, it means somehow that God knows Maaseh Kol Echad Ve'echad, and Maila is done, and Shoifet Meshgia gives... It means he knows, it means he knows, but Maila is Pushet that he's gonna... It doesn't really say anything about it. It says Oif Tzedukah Mish, but that's the only thing, the word that we collected in here. Okay, so that's l'chayre the Chiddush of Rosh Hashanah, that there's the din Broti, and that's why Rosh Hashanah we try to get out of this. People don't like it. That's what the Gemara says. You shouldn't daven b'yochid, and the Zohar is very into this. Because the trick of not being a goy, which has to be worried about Rosh Hashanah, is to be a Yid, and Yid is not Yid Broti, has to be a Yid clearly, so you have to go to... And therefore, Al-Kuna went already for Rosh Hashanah, although it doesn't say Shka Mitzvah Li L'Regel, or don't say V'na Alev Neruah, but maybe we should, Lefi Minik Al-Kuna. I'm trying them every day Rosh Hashanah. And Mesaf, we don't say V'en Yochad Na'alas V'sham Na'ala, but we should say, if I wasn't Shka Mitzvah Meik M'nishan Shka Hayin, but Al-Kuna definitely did. Okay, then I understand. Because he has very interested in the Goyish Rosh Hashanah. He's very right, but he's very interested. Oh, it has to do with that Zohar about the three middles of the world. But he's very interested. Very interestingly, he's very interested in the Goyish Rosh Hashanah, the Adam de Rosh Hashanah, that Goyish. But theoretically, it's Goyish. Yeah, he doesn't realize how universalist he is and his focus on this. And it's not a Chassidish focus. I don't know where he got it from. Okay. Agabonim, this is one of my Uris on Ramat L'Silva, but actually, for some reason, it focuses very much on the Udam, and Udam then was darf man sagen, dass das Jena Chosset, bestimmt nicht in der Teil. Okay. Kitzer, Veshlein, Nachzli Nani. Okay, so the Atkan is the Pshat, how we got the din from the Shana out of the Pusik, and the Chomim, now, okay, Atkan, what Adam? No, that's all I'm saying. No, the Tzov Mayim says that the Prat could also have the Bris. The Bris will be Chal on the Prat also. So again, so now we have to really, now you're saying a very strong order that we have to be ma'ayin. If it's ever this, what we're saying that it's l'chor on the Goyim also, it's not clear. Of course, the minutes of Schai V'Oinish, this is going to go to the Machlekas Ramban and Rambam in this whole Nekuda, because l'chor, the Torah seems to promise Schai V'Oinish only for Yidden. Basically, as Rak Eschem Yadati, that's basically the way of saying it. And then the goyim shouldn't be worried about Rosh Hashanah. Because they just have whatever you want to call it. It's a fourth alliance, right? And of course that's not entirely true. Of course, Hashem Mulach ala goyim, no, what does it say? It says beferish in the hundreds of psikim and Tehillim and Nevi'im that God is shoifet the goyim, the feet tzedek and mishpat. So it's a kenzich at least on the level of nations. It's differently, I feel like pshat. Yechidim barely says anywhere, so it's very hard to find to be madaik. But at least on the level of the justice between nations, it's nishkan shim sufik that there is mepshitish al mikro din. The tzedek Hashem koinen taivel b'tzedek means that whoever is right is going to win the war, or at least that God held cheshbon. If it's not, then it's a kasha. You can't say these a goy, doesn't matter. That can't be. So the Rishuna for the goyim is definitely valamdinas in the sense of goyish medinas also. Anders kann ich nicht sagen. You can't take away the whole Sefer Yeshaya and the whole Sefer Tehillim is talking about justice, international justice. Yeah, you can't take that away. And then you want to say that has to do with the bris about this. It's a very good question. If this bris, I think that Alib the Emes, I think what the Nevi'im would think is that Alib the Emes, of course, is. What do you believe? You don't think a goy that's chayv einish come seriously? That's really what people believe. Chayv einish is if you're a good person, you have good. Yeah, Eve was a goy, man. I got the kasha chayv einish. Why didn't anyone answer him? It was the goy. That's why. Faket. But then what's the Klal Yisrael special? No. I don't know. Right, Yisrael Nechas and Chiledin and so on. Right. Right. No, it's beferish. So I think that in the end of the day, the Nevi'im and Chachomim definitely believe that Chav Oynish has Gechaprutus and Goyim also. And then what you asked them, what Yidden special? I don't think they would tell you that it's different in this sense. Yeah, I don't think the Kizri was the one the Kizri is the one that pushes us into this corner. But we don't have to go and we don't have to let him push us in. I think that the general way of saying this would be that the Goyim didn't know that there's such a din, and we machalish that now they know also. I think that's the normal way of reading things. I think that normal people, even only Pur Oibachom, really believe that God doesn't care about the Goyim. Normally, people believe that God definitely gives Chayv Einish to Goyim. Pinklich weiß ich nicht, we're not always saying the Prutim, but definitely believe that Al Pipshat. And I steht in the Torah the ganze Sache in Mitzrayim. Yeah, because in Mitzrayim we don't believe it, they don't know about it, they don't believe in Hashgach, but they think that the Isaiah God playing this or whatever. But they have it to us. Really, it's God. Everyone read, all normal kids read the Chumash like this. Nobody reads it really like the Ramban. But Umek reads it, that really God doesn't care about Mitzrayim. Nobody really says that. And I don't know if even the Ramban believes that in this sense. Maybe you have to be ma'ayin in this. Nachamol, could you go to a goy? Let's say they call you to the goyish public school, they give a shmiz for the shuna, okay? If you say sure, right? And what are you going to tell them? You don't have to worry too much anyway, it's only Netz Yisrael. What are you going to tell them? I'm going to get this Netz Yisrael if I have time. What are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them the regular drush that you say. Look, there's a God and He's a just God, and if you do good, He gives you schar. If you do bad, He gives you punishment. It doesn't say for Mishle, it doesn't say anything. It says this is a basic Yisod HaMikra, Yisod it's like a Chiddush. Maybe the ancient religions, maybe before they didn't believe that. Maybe people before Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know about this, but Moshe Rabbeinu told this to everyone. They don't say, nobody goes around saying that it's not true for them. If you see a guy doing a Avla, he says, it's brand Gehenim, right? And the Chsidim Masai. Let me make like Tano. Chsidim Masai go to Gehenna, but Tish Klov, it means Mitzad Goyim, or just means they're all God, they're all Rishuim. But in Pashtus, that's what happens. Okay, we have to do with his book about Goyim. I think that normal Jews believe that Goyim have Chav Einish. The Pashtus and the Rishuna therefore is also for Goyim. Brill's book about, I don't know what's here somewhere. I was reading it on Shabbos because I wanted to know what I told you. Get Nachli Nani. Sean, so this is where did we get into the thing with Goyim? I have to go back to my thing with time and space. That's really where I have to get to. Okay, so now, Nachli Nani. So, as there is the din, that where we got the din from Yirua and Ma'adim and so on. And therefore, the Shunim Kippur are sort of a Chova of Sikkis, or a Chuna L'Sikkis. The media says this in the media, and the Vanatili say this in a slightly different way, where they say that because it is Mana Usif, so we need to do Tshuva, because the Chashash of Pen Tizbav And no, Ramlo Vechel V'Shachachta is really in that time, so that's when we have to be Machnia Dafka and do Tshuva. But it's really, if you think about it, connects us back to the same idea. Now,
Granted, it's not like the Bryce of Akiva, a little bit.
Why not?
He seems to be arrived from the mitzvah at that time.
Beside it, because he's reading these mitzvahs. Again, maybe the mitzvah b'tar Gilo or the mitzvah b'tar Kabbalah Samach Shemaim or whatever it is, that it's because of this.
He's not knowing because of the Yeroya. He's knowing because
And you see Rabbi Akiva also combining the. But that mitzvah, that's how. How you nidam p'nei Hashem Pesach by being Yoim. That's how that the Seder Atvod, Seder Atekes, the Seder Mitzvah. How do you do Rosh Hashanah by Malchus Chanashafas? And he confuses the Rabbanon with the Reis. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why they say
Right, because he reads it. Okay. It goes back to where he says by Mebbe because he understands that no, as Malchus Chanashafas are perish on the Shefer. Okay. Now we have to. Okay, I'll tell you a new chiddush, a nice shtickle. Okay, this is kind of alter shtickle. I'll tell you a new shtickle from Shabbos. Now we know there's another way of reading Me'adam B'Ofen Kluli. The other way of reading Me'adam B'Ofen Kluli is, I just need to write down where I'm up to. Is chadu pens. The other way of reading Me'adam B'Ofen Kluli is historically, right? Everyone knows Pesach is because of. Pesach is because of. Yitzias Mitzrayim, and Shvius is because of Matan Torah, and Sikas is because of Ananei Kovid. And this is the Lowy Rabbi Akiva's Pshat, basically, which is Din ala seasons, right? Everyone knows that there's the seasons, and there's Din ala seasons, which is Rabbi Akiva's Pshat. And then there's Pesach, Kudem Meros from Mitzrayim, and so on, right? And a lot of read about how these things connect, and so on, yeah?
It doesn't say that's the Yom Tov, it just says it's Din on Yom Tov.
No, I'm pretty sure that the Mishnah would see that as one of the Iker and Yunim of the Yom Tov. With the Iker mitzvahs of the Yom Tov, he puts into that Rabbi Akiva. I don't think it's only a random thing. We look at it as random. We somehow, we take seriously the din, and the other Yom Tov, but not seriously. I don't think that Mishnah takes it like this. There's no reason to look in the Mishnah Rishon. Maybe you could, because it says Rishon, doesn't say Pesuchim. I think that the Mishnah interprets the Iker Yom Tov as that. Okay, but it definitely connects with the seasonal Yom Tov. That's how it connects. One of the ways it connects. Now, Rosh Hashanah famously doesn't really fit into this cycle of the year. Nobody really knows why Rosh Hashanah is B'chodesh HaShvi, B'echad B'Tishrei. And there's a famous Ran that asked this question, and others asked this question. And the way the Ran asked the question was the Bishlam Lefi Reb Leizer was the B'Tishrei Nevra Olam. I understand. If Reb Shia Weistanish, it says maybe it's because of Yom Kippur. And who give a kasha? It's just totally was Yom Kippur, what you verstehst du, ja? Ich hab nicht, what the answer to this kasha, with this teretz. So, yeah, so, Anachanami, there's the Indian. So why is Yom Kippur in B'chodesh HaShvi? Verstehe nicht. Yes, the kasha is why is the din this time? No. The Yashleim was is before Yom Kippur, so we should be able to achieve Meches Dashem. Okay. That's the Tiran, and why? And then you ask why. Wait! You're saying a historical pshat Yom Kippur also. It doesn't say this pshat doesn't say in the Torah. You made it up yourself. When you're not you, the Medrash Tachim and the picture of Blaze. So there's different ways of reading this. I tried to organize it at some point. Again, we could go backwards. Yom Kippur Shuna definitely doesn't say in the Torah anything. Also, Yom Kippur doesn't say anything. In Torah, we have these two things. We could sort of work from the slicha of Moshe Rabbeinu, which would be a very interesting thing to say. Lamasa, you have to think about this very interesting thing. The Rambam seems to take this as the reason why it's Yom Kippur, and therefore why it's Rosh Hashanah, because Torah to that. And the Ran maybe wouldn't be understand that. It's a Medrash, and it's a Medrash Nachim already, so it was before the Perek Rebbe. And that's said, and of course this whole thing doesn't say, because it's only based on a shtickle Torah of the Chachamim that they counted 120 days. Somehow they came up, it's not Pshit Hashem at all, this 120 days, only 40 days of Pshat. So, ich weiß nicht, maybe two 40 days, not three. The three is very interesting Chiddush. And also, Ping Tzal Unkim, okay, so they ended up with Ping Yom Kippur, and therefore that was the day, also, it's not the day that anything really happened. The day that Moshe Rabbeinu came with Matan Lichas Shnias, that's what it says in the Mishnah, and the Gemara and Tanis. The Lichas Shnias were given, the Braisa, I think, is already in Tanis. It's not in the Mishnah, though, right? The Pshat on the Mishnah. And the Lichas Shnias were given, and therefore, Shaychas Lichas Shnias Yom Kippur, auch nicht. doesn't even say in the Gemara. This only says in the Medrash and the Rashi on that Gemara and others, that therefore it was also when they found out about the Slicha. Sachel found out. Nicht echt geschehen, it was whenever Slachtig Tverech was sometime mitten Chodesh Elf, weiß ich. Wenn es geschehen, wenn man die ausgefunden Bisserlem, that's Lishon, I think the Rambam, but I think maybe the Drush, Bisserlem, Shenis Bas, Shenis Licha, when I go, so therefore Nasa Ledoire, same Slicha, that's the language of it's the language of Medrash Nachima, and it was the language of the Rambam. Probably the Rambam took it from there. So that's one way, but it's actually a weird thing to say. Why is it a little weird? It's at least different than the other Yesh La'ayin about Sikkis. Sikkis doesn't really have time and the history either. Right? We have the Grul, but that's just the Pshitil Torah. So ich weiß nicht, ob das ist also ein Gitte Pshat. There's also Medrushim that the Avram Avinu, the Kaida was in Rishona, Yom Kippur, the Bris Milah of Avram Avinu was Rish Yom Kippur, and so on. Different kinds of ideas like this. None of them say in the Chumash, this is sicher. Then we have the idea of the B'riyas Olam, which the Siddur seems to think is the reason for the din of Rosh Hashanah. And auch the Hugi Fakash, Shaykh's B'riyas Olam is a din. Yeah. Seems to say that that's why. That's how it goes with this way. If Shvi is like Shabbos, it's a similar idea, yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. Okay, but I wanted to say big Kiddush. So that's another quote. You could ask this question: why Taka doesn't it say? Okay, Akpunim, what I think is that Taka changes in certain ways, and Akpunim, and of course, let's talk about the Nikid of Tshuva. That was my Chiddush. So we have all of these things of a Moyed, maybe it's a kind of din. Din again, that's not something that the Torah, at least in this sense, focuses on. So for whatever reason, nicht kein Kash steht nicht. Tshuva is also not something that the Torah focuses on, even on Yom Kippur, of course, right? It doesn't say anything about Tshuva in the Chumash, about doing Tshuva on Yom Kippur. We can read, not only by Yoina, there's a Yeshiva, the Gemara sort of reads it that way. When it's on the statue, it says it's a mitzvah to be in Zvada. The Gemara, the other Mefan, how do we get mitzvahs with Yom Kippur? Where did we get it from? The Rambam has a Psashtikal Torah, where we got it from. We somehow get from Letar Eschem that therefore you have to be Mekalach Desaychem. So how do you do that? By doing Tshuva. How do you do that? By saying Vidya and Vidya. There's a other Pusik that it says Vizvada Olav. So the Kohen Gudel, Kalav Nesayim. So we sort of get into the idea of Vidya. Also doesn't say anything about Tshuva, only about Vidya. And Shain Bekitzer, that has to do the whole Shmis of Tshuva, but it's important to notice. In the Chumash and in the Mishnah sort of starts getting Yom Kippur into Tshuva territory. But before that, we don't really have Tshuva. Now, where does the Chumash yet talk about Tshuva? That's the important thing. The Chumash definitely does talk about Tshuva, at least in Sefer Devarim. And the Tshuva also has a history in the Chumash. This was my Chiddush. Tshuva also has a history. But what's the history from Tshuva? The history of Tshuva is not a personal thing. Of course, there's no personal Tshuva in the Chumash. But the history of Tshuva is, if everything has a Makar, right? If everything, Pesach is because of when we had Mitzrayim, and Sikkis is when we went the Midbar, and Shvi is when we got the Torah, and Tishrei was when the Chacham was Mitzvah. Let's say like that. So where's the Makar of Tshuva in Jewish history? You can talk about the Chet Hagel, I don't think that's the Makar. It doesn't say a word. By the way, because Sisa does not kein Wort Tshuva. It says Slicha, it doesn't say Tshuva. See, these are two different things. At least the word, of course, you could say, how do you get Slicha? All that Tshuva. The word Tshuva says in the Torah, and I know what history is talking about. Of course, it says before that, but it literally says that it's talking about that history in the end of the Devarim. It's talking about the Makar of Tshuva in Chumash and in Tanach is Bayis Shani. That's my Chiddush. That's a good word. It's in the Pusik. This Pusik is both in Bechikoisai, both in Parshas Bechikoisai, both in Parshas Vayelech. Literally, in the Tzuf Vayelech, literally says, you will be thrown out, right? And you will. Where do we get the Parshas Tshuva according to Ramban? This is a historical story. Literally, it doesn't mean you're gonna start being good. It's also that, but it literally means you will come back, both in a physical sense. You'll come back later as well. You will come back and you will be better. You'll be mekabel, and you will come back. And then Pusik meferish in the Cheres Moshe, not in Sefer Ezra. And the Torah it says that's when Tshuva is for. So the historical Makar of Tshuva is Shiva's Tzion, the Bayis Shani, and in Sefer Ezra, obviously, that's where we have Rishinas Yom HaTshuva. Ezra, Hasayfe.
Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot, have you keep also?
Rosh Hashanah. No, they keep it, they skip in Sefer Ezra for whatever reason. But, was I there? Ich weiß, she's klein. But like, Ezra was the Mechadish that you have to do Tshuva in Chodesh Tishrei. It wasn't Mechadish it. Moshe Rabbeinu said it, but it was never the Moira that Makar of Tshuva is didn't happen yet. Because it was and I read Brut Makoris that even the Chodesh El they ready the Tshuva. They started building Bas Mikdash and Chodesh El. But it. So yeah, even before that I remember. There was a Chanukah, but Agaponim. So Tshuva was a Chiddush of Ezra. Of course, what did he do? He did Mamash Liv Shtaten. He realized that.
He's reading the Torah. What was?
Yeah, so I'm in there. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Now, where does it say the mitzvah of doing Tshuva b'chodesh Hashvi in Parshas Vayelech? I'm forcing me first. Read Parshas Vayelech. It literally says this. It says something like this. Read the Parsha, and you see. It says, you will... Look, I wrote down the Torah, right? This is the whole story. You have to read it like this. Like, I'm shtaichen the Torah. But matching Yishrim the Torah ended, right? Now, what do we do with it, right? We have to give it to Yeshua. We have to... we wrote it down, and... no, and then we write it, writes it down, and now we have to get the olim to listen to it. Now, where's the Torah? The Torah is in the Mikdash, right? The Torah is not by everyone. The Rasha has this whole nice Torah, that everyone got it, and then but it's not in the Chemish, yeah. The Torah is the Torah, and by Mikdash. It's very hard. The Rasha is mamish Torah that pusik. Right? Chazal already said there was 13 Torahs, but it's the Chazal. The pusik gesagt, he wrote the Torah. Okay, now he wrote the Torah, and there's really 3 different ayats in Parshas Vayelech of how we can have the Torah after it's written down. But the first ayat is Hakel. It says he gives it to the Gehanim and he tells them put it next to the bris, right? And also next to the urna bris. Wie pinklich achillik wie. And that's a shelf that a fight was inside the urna. Was enough committed. What is it's hidden over there? And who reads it? Nobody. How does everyone else know the halacha? Ich weiß nicht. Vielen sich minnig over sein bidam. And what it tells them that once in 7 years, then before you call Yisrael liros es pnei Hashem again, it says liros, but I read liros. Tikra is a Torah as who's Tikru? It's very interesting because it doesn't say who. The Chacham say Melech. The Kehanim, he's talking to Yeshua maybe. It's not clear who he's talking to. It says Lushan Yochid Tikra. But it means whoever. HaKoyen Yeshua B'yimah Yashayifat Melech. No, this is a tzivi leKehanim. It's a tzivi to the people that are getting the Torah. The Klazal never got the Torah. You have to remember this. I'll peep shot. This Nachamo. Why do we need a Saifa? Because of course then they heard it, but later they're gonna forget it. As that the next parsha, you will forget. I'm not deluding myself, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was one good thing about him. But he didn't. It's you're gonna die. I'm gonna die, and you're gonna forget about it. And what am I doing? So there's 2 things. I'm gonna make you a Shiras Hazini, which reminds you about it. We have to talk about that this week. But the other ayats are going to write to us. I'm going to give it to the Kehanim. They're going to keep it in the Mikdash. The Mikdash, he assumes, will stay. And the Taka did stay always. There was never Shikhas HaTorah, but no Shikhas HaMikdash, right? Mikdash. There wasn't. There was Chilla HaMikdash. Never Shikhas HaMikdash, right? Mikdash will stay. And who's the min of the Mikdash? The Kehanim. The Leviim, the Kehanim, Leviim. And they will have the Torah. Now, how do you get the Torah in the hands of the people, into the ears of the people, right? And which people the Benayim, right? This dog they already know the Torah, so we don't have to do it every year, right? Think about it, but it's a generational thing that he's talking about, right? It's not a yearly thing that he's talking about; it's a generational thing. He's saying if right, that's the whole sefer, and therefore he says once in 7 years, so you don't have to do it every year. Once in 7 years, if yishmi v'lamdi liras Hashem. What does it mean? They will hear the Torah one and by the Hakal, and that's what it happens. That's the push the pshat. That's why it's dugish, like I talked to you about. Parshas V'schan about the Yeshal Chabincha, right? It doesn't mean every year. Every year is just the king, but it means the next generation. They were not here. They don't know. They'll come. We have to get them to come here, and they'll come to the place where the Torah is kept, and they'll hear the Torah. And what's the point of them hearing the Torah? V'lamdi liyira, right? Where does it say v'lamdi liyira also in Parshas Ra'ai about the Maaseh Shani? In other words, why do I need you to come here once in a while? Because you don't have Torah. In your shtut, there's no Torah. You have to come to the Kanim and they'll teach you the Torah. So that's how pshat what it means. It's but that's how pshat what it means. And same thing here. In other words, you will do Tshuva. It doesn't say the word Tshuva here. And who did this? And then it literally says, and then it talks about the Shira or the whole Torah. You will forget. By the way, very funny question that Ramban already asks was pshat from they already killed this v'omer b'yom he is a tshuva. It just means to say you will recognize that the reason for your problem is that God is not with you. And it's true, and Ataka won't be with you. That's all. It's not a chronological psikim. I don't know why the Ramban and others thought to read it like that. And therefore, I have an Eitza. Write this down. And you will have this, the Shira or the Hakal, both two Eitzes for the same thing. And and then you will, and then what? That actually, the funny thing is, here it doesn't say what you will do. It said earlier in Bashtan Tzuvim, it did say, right? Then in the end of the Shem, here it doesn't say. It's very, this is the but it says beferish before. This is by shiny as ba'as. And the way that it will happen is this. And Shira also doesn't say anything about Shiva. So I don't know how that's.
What's the things you can do over there? You're going to
V. In Vayelech?
You're going to
I thought, and it says, you make you better than your parents. Like, that's what the Shayan said. These are all the things. You will become better than your father. And he comes the thing, and he gets them together when everyone knows that Chodesh Shvi is the big Aliyah Regel, and he gets them together, and it's once in a lifetime, and then Mekabla sich to do Tshuva. That's why, of course, they came because it was a Aliyah Regel. Right, and they go to Shar HaMayim because it's in the Animal Mayim. And it's a Aliyah Regel. They come, and what does Ezra do? He does what the Chemesh said he should do. He reads the Torah to them, and explains them the halachas, and explains that you shouldn't, whatever the avayos that they were doing. And they do Tshuva, and Me'oz, Nikva, that every year in Chodesh Shvi we do Tshuva. That's the Mekar. Pink Vaged then.
Oh, they did it because they knew Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, I think that they were Mechadish. No, it's Moshe Rabbeinu says, but Tshuva, if you were looking in the history of Tshuva is by Shani, literally, Shiva Sion, that's where Tshuva became that Moshe Rabbeinu said that's when you will do Tshuva, man. And that's, and therefore...
They told him not to do it, they told him to calm down.
No, he told them that Hantas, you should be happy. That wasn't the kasha. Of course, he's right. They have to do Tshuva Rosh Hashanah. They heard the Torah, and they saw that they're not listening to it. So they have to do Tshuva tin. Also, we steht in Hakel, man Yilmedi. It's in Lekadai Last Tshuva. It's not etwas anderes. Then he said, I'm not sure if he says because it's a Yom Tov Kodesh Hashem Ladinani or because they're doing Tshuva. But you should be happy. And then after Sikkis, we'll do the Halucha, the Lamas, the Tshuva Matin Nuch Sikkis. Yeah, and Chof Dalet. But we clearly learn, it says, we clearly learn from here that the Rishoni should be happy and not only do Tshuva. But I don't think the pshat of this is like that. I think the pshat is that he's trying to help them. The simcha over there also wasn't mitzad the Rishoni, it was mitzad als tashir, a bisschen fein, a bisschen sich frei. You could read it as part of the story also. I don't know if that it's only it's also okay. It has to do with other different Torah. I'll tell you. I had another Torah about Chodesh Shvi, about it's this Torah. And let's listen to Simcha. Read it a different time. Okay. Now. No, and you a whole time thought, and until Ezra, everyone thought that it's only Yom Adin. Ezra was mechadish that it's also a Simcha. And I say think like that. Of course, it's Simcha, and he was mechadish that's Yom Adin. No, but what I'm trying to say is that it's metocha metzias. Why do you have to do Tshuva? You have to understand, we don't have to do Tshuva on Rosh Hashanah. Tshuva, in the general sense, of course, it's Tshuva like the Rambam has Tshuva. That can almost very bessen and more dvaikas and more emes and zayvate. But that's not what Tshuva in the Torah means. Tshuva in the Torah means very grob. You became goyim, you went and you'll stop being of the limachayim, you'll come back and you'll divorce, you'll go to your wives, whatever, which is a nisbach to the limachayim, and you'll come back to God. This is a generational thing, like about Shiva. That's different than about Shiva and other Shiva. But the Torah means something like that. Not even about Shiva. It's a whole it's a gela. It's a whole as a movement or something like that. And that's where real Shiva is. That's what. And when you're in such a situation, the time the richtige tat is atin is the Rishon. If not, then it's like a hakel, like a chatchela. So kedai shloi l'mayin l'madi kedai shloi. The next time we shouldn't have to do this. Besides, it's more of a preventative medicine than a real medicine. I think that this is true. Not echt Shiva. Darf na machen sich, am nicht darfen Shiva next year. Doch da geht die Kavone. No, you can't make everything. We have so much yachik hadith. Everything is badakas and madragas. Push it. Don't have to do Shiva. Alles ist ganz geht. Ich meine, whatever. But the real Tshuva is like, it seems like you see some and so on. Okay. Was soll ich gewollt sagen? So this is the Mechraye. Like Gullus. Are you in Gullus or you're not? You could always say that you're in Beginnes Gullus, you're Beginnes Gele, but there's also a basic Pshat, right? Either man hat zu essen oder man hat nicht zu essen, you know? Nicht vergessen, der Pushte Pshat. So that's my thing with how we got Tshuva. Okay. Ad kan Shir Aleph. Then I had a whole other shtickle Torah, a big tradition about the previous question, which is if it really happens or not. If the Sheiris Matshiva is real, or the Zman, if it's Lamal Min Azman or Lamat Min Azman. So here, I have a whole nother sheet to explain that as Tuli and the whole Machlokes to the dateline. Also the Zelva Machlokes. You'll stay here, I'll tell it to you. Have to go?